What's cracking, everybody? Florges here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Badly content. Today's video, we're going to be talking about some of my top 5 teams that I could think of for the Master Premier Cup, because I am still not touching Open Great League this entire season. Not a single game. You can't make me do it. I put a lot of effort into getting a Master League roster set for this season, and by Jove, I'm going to use it. So, here's some teams that I like and some Pokemon. Of course, there's some Pokemon. We're playing Pokemon Go, right? But these are the rankings that we've got for Master Premier. You can see Dragonite's up on the very tippy top because it's got that Dragon Claw super power coverage, not super cover powerage. That was what was about to come out of my mouth. Dragonite and Florges are sitting up on the top. They're very, very good at what they do. Florges is just an absolutely pure, just demolishing wrecking ball of a fairy type. And Dragonite has the superpower and Dragon Claw coverages that just make it really good in just about all situations. So, Dragonite's probably going to be the most common Pokemon in this entire cup. Oftentimes it's on the lead to be able to get rid of the superpower debuff, but occasionally you might see it in the back. Opponent might say swap a Gyarados to get your counter out, and then they'll go in with the Dragonite after that's been done. So Florges is another one that you're going to see a lot of. It doesn't lose, but it is very much walled by steel types. It doesn't really do well with things that beat fire, or beat fairy, sorry. But it is very bulky in this meta, and it gets to move very quickly thanks to Fairy Wind. So ever since we were able to move from Vine Whip to Fairy Wind, it's been very good. But Excadrill is another one you're going to see in just about every team or every other team. It's been the king of the Master Premier for a while as far as, you know, dominating just because it has that mud shot. We've had some additions to the meta that kind of shoved it down the rankings, but overall it's still one of the strongest Pokemon in the cup, and you can't count it out. It's just too good. And then Snorlax is definitely the safest of safe swaps, being that it's normal, does ghost damage, and has the normal type body slam, stab, as well as superpower, earthquake if you want to, outrage if you want to. It's got a very unpredictable move set. While most people will run body slam, superpower, you could slot a different move in there to be spicy. And then it's just very neutral, and that's the nice thing about really good safe swaps is they're neutral, right? You know, you're using it to draw out, you know, like in this first team, for example, we can talk about that right off the cuff. The first team we're looking at here is Dragonite, Excadrill, Snorlax. Now you could slot in a Metagross and make this Dragonite double steel, which is a very popular Master League team, which would allow you to have a much better coverage against opposing Dragonites. But overall, we're going to look a little bit more at the team comps rather than the sims here. Every team is going to have a core breaker. Every team is going to have something that it loses to on paper, but it's going to be about how you play around it and leverage your advantages over the opponent knowing that. So a Dragonite, for example, is one thing that this team loses to on paper. Lands a superpower on Excadrill, lands a superpower on Snorlax, and Dragonite's just neutral into itself. So you have to be able to make some neutral plays here in order to overwhelm the opponent. Maybe catch the Dragon Claw on your Excadrill. You could try and, you know, whittle it down, force a shield advantage, and then swap in your Snorlax and just play it out from there. But oftentimes, Dragonite will just about always be paired with Steel type. So if you see a Steel in the lead or a Steel in the back, you're usually going to see a Snorlax, or not Snorlax, you'll see a Dragonite with it. But the Dragonite Excadrill core is the one we're looking at here. Your Snorlax could be something maybe like an Ursaluna. It could be something else like Metagross, we said. Something to draw out that hard counter, that Gyarados, right? Or something that hard counters the Excadrill. So those are going to be your potential threats. We're looking at things like Mamoswine, other Dragonites. But again, you know, think about context, not necessarily what this is on paper, but also think about the things that you see. Like if you're strong in the lead, weak in the back, that's okay. That's the point of the alignment. But you get core broken by something like a Hisuian Avalugg, which you're not going to see much of. Gyarados is technically a core breaker here when it has Dragon Breath, but if you best buddy your Snorlax, you get a break point on that Gyarados, and then you win that matchup. And then Dragonite is actually not that bad, despite the Gyarados having Dragon Breath. The stab Dragon Breath damage from Dragonite actually, I think, outdoes the damage from the Gyarados just about. Maybe not, but it's pretty close. It's actually really, really close. And then you'll see things like Togekiss, and then Beartic. If you see a Beartic in Master Premier, you let me know, because I want to talk to that person, and we'll have a shoutcast happen, because that's some spice, boy. Some spice. So let's talk about another team here. we're going to play back a team that I really enjoy playing, and I can't play because I don't have enough XLs for my Haxorus. I didn't raid enough Axus. Darn me. I'll just get them in the community today, and then everybody will have Haxorus, right? Maybe get a shiny Shundo, maybe. I'll never get a Shundo, dude. My shiny Hundo luck is so bad, it's disgusting. But anyway, this team preys upon the alignment of the Dragon Double Steel, and also we have Garchomp in here, not with Outrage and Mudshot, but with Dragon Tail and Double Ground moveset. Do not underestimate Garchomp's ability to flip switch in the 2 shields with Dragon Tail. That thing is an absolute monster and must be respected, as I have flipped so many switches, at least in Classic. I don't know if it translates as well to Premier, but I'd like to think that it's probably pretty close. But flipping switch in this meta is what Garchomp does best, or it's going to bring out the Florges, it's going to bring out the Fairy type, and Metagross gets a nice fat farm off of that. And Metagross with energy and or shield advantage beats just about everything that ever walked the earth. So, man, Haxorus is just such an amazing core breaker. It core breaks the Metagross. It core breaks... I'm trying to think of the cores that it breaks. I just know that it beats a lot of common things, like it beats the Snorlax, it beats the Metagross, it beats the Excadrill, beats the Magnezone. Has a lot of play against other dragons because of how quickly it gets to those Dragon Claws. Even against Waterfall Gyarados, it completely shreds it. And there's just, even against ice types too, those counters add up very quickly. This Haxorus is just a very good thing that people don't usually plan for because it's not as common in the XL Master League. I think that it was getting a lot more common in the Premier, or in the Classic Premier, right before we had the cut away from No More Classic. It was like right after that Go Fest, and people were running Haxorus because we finally had it in raids and you could get it. But this team is incredibly fun to play. Haxorus is an absolute blast, and if you can use this team, I can certainly recommend it. So, next team we're going to have here.
Do I need to do it, or do you do it?
I got it. I got the door. Doggy's got to go outside. Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you for your patience, and I had to let the dog out the room. She had to go to the bathroom before she goes to bed. So, we've got... We've got another team here with Florges Double Ground. Now, the thing with Florges, as we said, right, it loses hard to steals. And what's one of the best types to put in the back to deal with those steals? You got Double Ground. Now, the thing with this Double Ground line, though, is that it's not strictly ground. Like, you could throw Excadrill Swampert back there, and you'd have a very good Double Ground anti-steal, but there are definitely things that those two will lose to, like Gyarados will shred them silly. Now, the nice thing about Ursaluna and Mamoswine is they both have really strong ways around Gyarados. Ursaluna gets the Thunder Punch. That one Thunder Punch will probably near one-shot a Gyarados, being that it's double super effective electric damage. And the tackles add up pretty quickly, too. Mamoswine has the Avalanche, which it gets to fairly quickly. It does, I believe, outpace the... I think it outpaces the Gyarados in a straight fight. But Florges is just, if you've never used one or you don't have one, I can't really convey in words just how strong that thing is, especially in the lead, when you constantly win leads against Gyarados, Dragonite, and like literally everything else under the freaking sun. I'm trying to look in the list down here of like everything else that this thing wins against, and it's just like every dragon, anything that's not a steel, anything that has fighting attached to it, even Swampert, anything that doesn't resist Fairy outright, basically can't overcome Florges without some real like finesse. So that's kind of the gist of the team. We're using Safe Swap Ursaluna here, and then Mamoswine is our closer with shields because we love Pumbaa. Pumbaa is life. Some potential threats that we've got here: the Avalugs, Empoleon, Ferrothorn. If you, like I said, man, if you see any of these in Master Premier, I have questions. I really do. You might see Swampert Golden Go. You might see one crazy boy running Aurorus, Roserade, Charizard. Like you're not going to see any of these. Anything that's not core breaking in the second or third slot here. Anything that doesn't show up in the second or third slot by itself, we don't worry about it, right? Because if it shows up in the first slot, that's what Florges is supposed to handle, and if it loses that lead, then we pivot to the Ursaluna. So that's fine. This is okay. The things that beat this team almost don't exist, which is why it's such a strong team, I suppose, right? So moving on to number 4 here. We've got Excadrill, double flying, double dragon-ish. Gyarados is just a really strong safe swap. You're going to throw Gyarados on the safe swap. You should probably put it on with Waterfall, but I certainly don't mind having Dragon Breath. I think it's just a preference thing at that point. And again, we're talking about that Excadrill Dragonite core being one of the strongest cores in this cup. You definitely could do worse than this for yourself. And honestly, it's just a really strong team overall. Beats the Florges, leads. Dragonite by itself is just extraordinarily powerful, and you know, there's not really a whole lot of things that can truly beat this team. And I mean, obviously there are some here, but like most of them are uncommon or things that you could certainly play around. Like, you know, Mamoswine, you could certainly play around that with the Excadrill, or put yourself in a position where Dragonite lands a superpower. Ursaluna, same difference. Gyarados with an energy lead beats Ursaluna, and then as long as you don't eat the high horsepower, Excadrill also beats Ursaluna. We ain't gonna see any Walreins, Auroruses. Maybe you see a Chestnut. Chestnut did pop up last time as a pretty strong core breaker. I'm almost done with mine. As far as XLs, I don't know if I'm gonna spend that dust, but it's certainly tempting. And then everything after that is like, you know, Primarina you might see, but Excadrill beats Primarina if it's got Charm, so you're good there. So we'll talk about this last team, which is a little bit less of a meta team and more of a counter the meta that you're seeing if everyone and their mother is running some sort of double steel thing. But also keep in mind that Conkeldurr with that Stone Edge makes it a very, very strong threat to Gyarados swap-ins on it. Especially when you've got Magnezone, you're going to really make your opponent want to bring in that Gyarados into the Conkeldurr save swap. And one Stone Edge will end a Gyarados' whole existence. Now, this whole team, on paper, loses to Florges, so you will have to finesse around the Florges, especially with the Magnezone. The Mirror Shots are not quite enough. Maybe you consider running Flash Cannon. I don't know. But most Florges probably won't stay into a Magnezone lead anyway, even though it's technically a win. I don't see them staying in very much for that. And aside from that, most of these things aren't bad. I mean, I have Mamoswine slotted in here. That's why Florges is showing. Let's put this back to Magnezone. I think this is when I was messing around with it. Hold on. Let's fix this, because on paper this team looks awful. Dragonite beats it, but again, that's assuming that the Dragonite lands the superpower, right? Remember the context. Garchomp does do pretty well here against Magnezone, concerning his ground and dragon. But Machamp and Conkeldurr both can put enough pressure on a team to make that potentially a winning situation. Metagross, same deal. Metagross's fast moves are resisted by Magnezone, and the fighting damage coming in from both Machamp and Conkeldurr might actually be worth noting compared to the bullet punches. And I mean, the meteor mashes are going to come out, but they're not going to come out as often as something like a cross chop from the Machamp. And then Golden Go, if you see it, have fun. I'm not putting too much stock into it. People are going to play it if they have it. It's an interesting pick, and I think it's kind of cool. I don't have one. I'm not worried about it. So if you see a bunch of them, I guess don't play this team. Yeah, no, on paper, this team doesn't lose to... It doesn't look like it does well, but if you look at some of the names on here, like, you're starting to think... I actually thought I was in a team builder for, like, Ultra League or something when I started seeing things like Gallade, Trevenant, Nidoqueen. I was like, wait, huh? No. So, you're all right here. This team does have some issues dealing with Dragonite and Metagross. If you can finesse around those two things, the rest of the things that beat this team are few and far between. And with that, that's going to be my top 5 teams. Or at least somewhat top 5, right? For the Master Premier Cup. And if you want to get these teams early, or get teams that don't even make it to the video that may slap even harder than these teams, you should consider checking me out on Patreon, where you can support this channel as well as what I do and my family, and you will gain access to a Discord server that has all of my early access team strats, cup analysis, basically everything under the sun, as well as an amazing community that we're growing together and getting better every day at this game. And if you're looking for some coaching, I'm on Metafy. Check a link out in the description. And with that, I'm going to bid you all a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week with whatever team I end up doing something with. We'll see what happens anyway. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.